Isometric exercise, otherwise known as a static hold, has come up on top as the best exercise to reduce blood pressure, even more so than other forms of exercise like running, lifting weights, and a number of others. And much to my happiness, multiple people asked on the last video going over the clinical data why isometric exercise has such a profound impact. So, what's so unique about isometric exercise that gives it this significant blood pressure lowering effect? In brief, isometric exercise is literally just holding a stable position during an exercise. That means the muscle is not shortening or lengthening like it would if you were going through the rest of the motion. Something about that position leads to added benefit over exercise that does undergo that lengthening and shortening. There are multiple reasons. Exercise researchers compiled the evidence for isometric exercise into a scientific review and covered a number of mechanisms that could explain the blood pressure lowering effect. For one, isometric exercise may have an outsized effect on a process called reactive hyperemia. In essence, when the muscle is stuck in one position, the muscle fibers and structure clamp down on the blood vessels in that area. This, in effect, raises blood pressure quite dramatically. So, unless I'm confused on which direction I'm supposed to be arguing, there should be some way for that to correct itself, and better yet, plummet blood pressure lower than before. There is. When the isometric hold is released, as in you move back out of the isometric position, the muscle relaxes, which also relaxes the blood vessels, returning blood pressure to where it was before. However, we're not interested in raising blood pressure and then bringing it back down to where it was. What good does that do us? Fortunately, that's not entirely what happens. The relaxation of the muscle opens up the blood vessels again, and as blood rushes in, it brings with it oxygen, nutrients, and importantly, multiple factors like nitric oxide and adenosine. These bind the blood vessel wall cells, called smooth muscle cells, and encourage them to relax even further. This opens the blood vessels even wider, dropping blood pressure beyond the initial point. This sudden influx of blood is called hyperemia. But the body doesn't stop there because other factors also play a role. Your body has receptors built into specific sections of the heart and even some blood vessels called baroreceptors. These baroreceptors are sensitive to changes in the blood pressure. If there's an increase in blood pressure, like when holding an isometric position, the baroreceptors will send a signal to the brain to reduce blood pressure. The brain does that through direct communication with the heart and the blood vessels via the nervous system. The brain encourages the heart rate to fall and for blood vessels to stay open. In fact, this review that we've been gleaning this information from mentions that there are studies where isometric exercise reduce heart rate and blood pressure 7 hours after the exercise, indicating a long-standing effect. Much of the heart and blood pressure effects are also confirmed, including discussions of the mechanisms in this systematic review as well. But let's go over one more such explanation for why isometric exercise provides the added benefits that it does. Oh, also there's some more nuances in a step-by-step hand isometric protocol that I created for the Physionic Insiders, my premium research platform. If you're interested in more on the topic, including the protocol, the link is in the description. Surprisingly, your neurons innervate or communicate with the various cells that make up your blood vessels. If we zoom in, we know that neurons can influence the activity of endothelial cells, the cells responsible for controlling the blood vessel size. Remember, the bigger the blood vessel, the lower the blood pressure generally. Neurons can influence endothelial cells to release more vasoconstriction or vessel constriction factors or vessel relaxing factors. Isometric exercise does not seem to activate what's known as sympathetic drive. Sympathetic drive is the neurons encouraging the endothelial cells to release vasoconstriction factors. Surprisingly, isometric exercise doesn't activate that pathway, which would typically be expected. In fact, neurons themselves, independent of endothelial cells, can release factors like nitric oxide that directly bind and cause relaxation of the blood vessels, called a parasympathetic drive. I do think there's a lot to uncover yet, but at least we have some idea of what makes isometric exercise unique and above all, so potent in reducing blood pressure. If you want to know the most effective isometric exercise and how to do it and more, join me in this next video. Thanks for watching.